Hey guys, welcome to the weekend. Thanks for stopping by as per usual. If this is your first time to the channel or you haven't subscribed yet, appreciate it if you consider it. There's lots more of this type of content on the channel already, and plenty more to come. If you've been on the channel for a little while and you've been watching a few of the videos, you know that a lot of the stuff that I've been doing recently has to do with our trip away to the Bylong 4x4 park, which is coming up in about 3 weeks. Opening the bags results in pretty much the same thing. What you're going to have in both of these is pretty much the air compressor itself with a fixed lead, and it's also going to come with some sort of air hose. Same as for the Ridge Ryder, the compressor itself, and we've got certainly a larger gauge air hose, which was one of the reasons for going with this, and obviously the same, a fixed cable there as well for powering it off your battery. You can see size wise there's not too much in it. The Ridge Ryder is a little bit higher than the eBay. Certainly a difference in the base plates there as well, you can see from a size perspective. It's not huge, but if you're trying to fit this into a small area, that certainly makes a difference. Construction wise, the eBay jobby is actually held up really well. Keeping in mind this is probably about 7 years old. This is the same filter type system in both ends. Obviously this is a dual pot, so it's got two of those. One in either end. These are just a real simple foam filter, which is the same as what you're going to find in the top of the Ridge Ryder. Just pull this cap off, and then obviously you see the same filters in here. In comparison, it's pretty much the same stuff that you've got in the eBay jobby. You can see here that this is just the small diameter stuff that come with the eBay one, and the one that comes with the Ridge Ryder and some of the other comparable or look-alike type compressors is certainly a larger diameter. It's a lot easier to work with. And it sure as hell looks a lot better as well. Not that I've had any issues with this, but when you're running this over 4 sort of large tyres, this can heat up, but that's just the nature of the beast with a lot of air going through that. What I did want to do, and you can see here, is that both of them have a male output on them. Same with the Ridge Ryder over here. Now what I actually wanted to do was swap this out for a female connection. There is a brass connection in there. And once I started screwing that back in, I actually quickly discovered some of the materials that have been used to make this are not the best, as expected. You know, come from China, and that started to thread fairly quickly. So I've had concerns about this connection here, that I may have introduced a new failure point to the compressor, and thus far it's worked pretty well. Last week when I had to use it coming off the trail, I had a little bit of an issue with some air escaping out of here. I think it was coming from this connection itself rather than the compressor, but it certainly prompted me to start to consider maybe starting to look for something else. One of my friends has, I think, an Ironman in the back of his car, and the other fella's got the Dr. Air, and we all ended up in roughly about the same time. So one thing that I have realised when going out with the guys in relation to, you know, pumping up your tyres and who gets done quicker, it's the simplicity of getting to your air compressor, getting your hose connected, and then getting your tyres pumped up, and then getting all that packed away again, that actually saves you the most time. So if all you have to do is flick a switch to apply the power to it and connect an air hose to get started, you'll be way out in front of the other guys as well. From a build perspective, on the Ridge Ryder, this is the Ultimate. When I bought this, it was down from $265 down to $168, so it was around about $100 off. So that's why I jumped on this. It does have the obligatory rubber mounts, so I am looking at mounting this in the car as a permanent addition. But what I'm looking at doing is removing that base because it adds too much bulk, or certainly space can be had by removing this. And now the coating on this, as far as the paint goes, appears to be very, very thick, certainly on this metal, certainly on the pump section itself, the cylinder itself, and it all looks nice. There's a little bit of swarth there that's come when it's been machined, so I found a few little things like that are on here, so it could probably use somebody to just throw an eye over it before they chuck it in the box for sending out. The connection for the air hose still had plenty of plumber's tape sort of wrapped around the outside of it that hadn't been applied correctly, so I've removed that and just tidied that up a little bit. Didn't have to take the connection off, it was just wrapped around the outside, so I've grabbed that and just pulled that off. Now if you have a look at the unsealed 4x4, they do a review on a whole bunch of these, and this one actually came out number 3, so it got 3rd place. From a price perspective, that's pretty good, considering that it was up against some ARB stuff and some other generic stuff there as well, so it actually performed very well. Okay, so I guess what you're most interested in is checking out to see how these compare against each other, pumping some air in the tyres. So let's get out of the car now, we'll hook them up, and we'll see how we go. Now the locks on the compressors are both the same, they're just a standard compressor quick lock. So you just pull back, push on, and she'll click on there like that. She's not going anywhere. Now one thing that you're going to see as a commonality between all of these compressors is that they've all got these inline gauges. One of the fall downs with these, and you'll see it, and I did it in my first video when doing a review of the eBay compressor, was that you can't actually use these gauges whilst the compressor is on. So for you to get an accurate reading on any of these inline gauges, you need to actually turn the compressor off, let it sit, and you'll actually get a reading then. So rather than being a screw-on jobby, which is the same with a lot of these, you can see here, just screw that onto the tyre there. They actually give you this little adapter which will screw into that connection, and then actually gives you this clip piece that will connect onto the tyre there. So rather than having to screw it on, it's just a clip-on connection there like that. Now what I've also found this useful for is actually airing down. So you can see it's an open end while it's not connected to the compressor, that's just open. So if you connect this straight up onto your tyre, so that's what we're going to use that for today. I'm going to drop this tyre down to around about 10 or 15, and we're going to pump it and bring it back up to about 40, which is roughly what I run on freeway. And what I have found is that whilst airing down, I can actually press my tyre gauge onto the end of this and get a reading, and it stops the air coming out. Just pull it off, let it keep airing down, push it back on, and that works very well. So that's actually nice and quick for me, and I am going to consider using that as my new airing down technique. So I think that works well. These are a large tyre, they're roughly equivalent to a 33 or close to. It's an 18-inch tyre, it's a 275/65 profile, and you can see there that it's the R18. You can see there we're down to 15 psi, so we'll go from 15 up to 40, and that'll be the comparison. And you can see there that the Ridge Ryder gauge is basically showing exactly 15 there as well. So that's good to know. So at a minute 18, we've actually hit 35. And you can see that's a minute 18 there. We're going to let it run because I want to take it up to 40. So we'll get that going again, and we'll come back to it in just a sec. So that's about a minute 40 to get from 15 psi up to 40 psi. So that's keeping in mind that this is basically the equivalent of a 33-inch tyre that we're pumping up. So we'll come straight off that test, put my hand on that cylinder there, and I wouldn't even call that mildly warm. Alright, we'll air this back down, and we'll get the eBay hooked up, and we'll see how we go. PSI, let's get this started. Okay, so what we've done here is just stopped at a minute 18, which is the same as what we did with the other one. Put a minute 18 there, and we've come up to 30 psi. So that's about 5 psi difference in that minute 18. We'll keep it running, and we'll take it to 40, and we'll see how long that takes. So that's pretty much sitting on the 40 now. So that is 2 minutes 30. So I'm going to save about a minute a tyre going from the old eBay jobby here, which I'm still happy with. Just for point of reference, that is very hot. We've only obviously just done the one tyre. I wouldn't say uncomfortably so. Okay, maybe I would if I'm going to hold my hand on it for too long. So if you hold your hand on that for a little while, so a few seconds, it definitely starts to heat up and get very hot. It's okay to put your hand on initially, but if you went around and did 4 tyres at these things, you could almost cook an egg on them. Other things that are a nuisance obviously are the fact that your power switches are on the air compressors themselves. So if you're at the back tyre and you've run your air cord all the way down there to the back, you need to stop the compressor to take a reading on the tyre pressure. You need to race up the compressor over here, switch it off. I will be setting up a remote control on the Ridge Ryder when that goes in the back of the car. So I'll be able to control it remotely from the tyre, so I can switch it on and off and turn the power to it on and off whilst I'm actually at the various wheels. So that'll come in handy, and that'll be in an upcoming video later on, and it is going to get mounted in the back of the car there as well. You can see here with the eBay clamps, they're certainly a lot larger, and it makes it a lot easier to get that onto those terminals, that clamp right open, and get that right over that terminal. There's a clamp on the Ridge Ryder, and you can see there that it's not quite big enough to get around there. We can force that to get that on. We come over to the positive one, and we're not getting that over that terminal itself. So you've got to rely on making a connection on the end, but I'd certainly prefer to have that whole clamp making contact with that terminal, considering we're going to be pulling about 45 amps give or take, rather than just having a minor connection here like that. Clearly that works, but again, that is not an ideal situation. Okay, so let's wrap it up. eBay compressor or Ridge Ryder? eBay compressor cost me about $100, and I have had that now for about 7 years. This has been a really good compressor as far as I'm concerned. It's done everything that I've asked of it. They tend to share the same cons, I guess, in that you're using these inline gauges that you can't get a reading off while the compressor's underway, which means that you need to go back up to the compressor and turn it on and off to get an accurate reading out of the gauge. It does get very, very hot. I was very impressed with the Ridge Ryder over the back there, the Ridge Ryder Ultimate. How cool, even just after doing that one tyre, and I was able to put my hand on. An appointment, I guess, was the bag that it comes in. It's the same crappy bag that you get with all of these compressors, so it's sort of not out of kilter with the competition. The $100 eBay compressor come with the same bag, and it started falling apart straight off the bat. But it's actually held up alright in retrospect. I thought that thing was literally going to disintegrate after a couple of months, but it's held up and it's done well. As the Ridge Ryder goes, I've got super cheaps locally. It doesn't matter where you're going to be in the country. If you have any issues with it during that 18-month warranty period, you'll be able to take it back into them, get them to look at it. It's nice to be able to walk into a store, and I certainly have the preference to do that where I've given the opportunity. Whereas if you're dealing with possibly an eBay merchant or something like that, or the 4-wheel drive super centre, you can't just rock up and knock on their door and ask for their help. So as far as the Ridge Ryder goes, very happy with the purchase, and we'll keep you posted on how it goes. Thanks very much, guys. We shall catch you on the next one.